Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project and TLBTV. I am delighted to bring back my guest from just 2 weeks ago, Phil DeLuca. He is absolutely an amazing man, and as you have watched the show, you already know quite a bit of information about him, but we're going to go over a lot more today. We are going to actually get into some helpful techniques that will allow you to begin resolving conflict today. And this is absolutely essential. As we know, many people, they seek out arbitrators or mediators when, if they have techniques right at the tip of their fingers, they can begin to resolve conflict, or what we call conflict resolution. And with us, I would like to invite again my special guest here with me to the show, Phil DeLuca. Welcome back.
Oh, great to be back. Great to be back. We're going to give a lot of... Go ahead.
Yes, no, go ahead. This is so exciting. I'm delighted with the conversation that we're going to have today.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it because we have the opportunity to give your viewers a lot of information that they've probably never heard before. And it's outside the box thinking. It's a radical new paradigm for communication, but it works where where there are currently hopeless situations, and that's the exciting part. So I try to go ahead.
It is exciting. It is very exciting, and we were talking a lot about communication last week, and there's so many different ways that communication is interpreted, verbally and non-verbally. There's a lot of things that happen, and I know that you wanted to recap on a few of those things.
Yes. Well, just to start off, the conventional approaches since the 60s and the 70s were based on the catharsis approach, which is when you get upset, get in touch with your anger. Repressed anger is really bad. Always be honest and open about your thoughts and feelings. No secrets, quote. And always deal with the problem now. Never go to bed mad at each other, or you're running from the problem. So that's been pretty much it's been embraced. It's dogma. It's settled science, and I put that in quotes. And pretty much all the approaches after that have just built on that. They haven't knocked out the base of that and said, hey, this whole thing doesn't work. So new books on way to communicate through that. Basically, vent your anger. You've got rights. They all build on that, and nobody has said, wait a minute, we try this, and there's quadrillion books out there, and why do we got to keep putting out more books? Maybe it's the approach that's not working. We need more information. That's the definition of craziness, right? Doing more of the same different outcome.
Yes. And the thing with it, Phil, which is very interesting, is that approach has been used for a long time. And if it were really the be-all to end-all in successful conflict resolution, we wouldn't be seeing the amount of divorces and relationship split-ups and business partnerships that are not working. If it were, like you said, the be-all to end-all, and that was the perfect approach. But you have come to find, through so much experience of your own and through so much research of your own, that there is a whole lot more, but there's a lot of it that is not as complicated as we're making it out to be.
Yes. Actually, the screw up in the communication or the catharsis approach causes all of these branches and this mess. And if you just cut out the base, then you can get rid of all that. To use an analogy, if you have somebody who's has a drinking problem, they're cantankerous, they're spending all their money, they're spending all their time in bars, they're getting into fights. Those are all kind of branches of one tree. And what you have, let's look at somebody with a drinking problem. So they're drinking excessively. That's the root cause. And so what do you see? You see they're cantankerous. They're spending all the money on alcohol. they're getting into fights with all people around them, they have job problems, they're in a bad mood, and you can address all those issues individually.
Okay.
Or you can just get them off of alcohol, get them off, and all of those other ones are going to go away. They're going to be in a good mood.
Right.
They're not going to come into work late. They're not going to be spending all their time at the bar and all their money on booze. And so that's what we have. We have a faulty base for the communication model, and then it's causing all of these problems, all of these branches, these limbs off of that trunk. And the solution is then, well, here's a new book, let's deal with this tree, this branch. No, and then we have another one. Well, why not just cut off the base? And,
yes.
And you don't have to worry about all that other stuff, or at least put minimum effort into it. So that's what my approach does. It kind of just cuts right to the root cause. And I was having a discussion just before we got online here with a couple going through this. And I was saying, listen, all you have to do, you had a disagreement Saturday night, and all you have to do was, before you put it all out there, all you had to do was identify when you were going into this lizard fight or flight response brain,
right,
and then put a pause switch on, get away, and then revisit it when you were calmer, and there'd be no regrets. There wouldn't be a follow-up fight the next morning. There wouldn't be sulking since then. There wouldn't be all of these things that were said bad to each other that now is going to take a long time to forget and forgive. See, and now so all of that's been eliminated. I said, all you got to do is disengage, put a pause switch in there, and then get back around each other when you can re-engage, when you can think, be calm, civil, and get through. And all of the rest of that is unnecessary. There's nothing to clean up because you didn't knock down the dominoes. There's nothing to pick up. There's no mess. Nothing to forget or forgive. No ego, no pride to swallow because you didn't say it. You didn't put it out there. So, if you want to use the medical model, somebody has high blood pressure, you can give them high blood pressure medicine, or you can work at lowering their blood pressure, their hypertension, and you don't have to give them the meds. They're not on meds the rest of their life with all the side effects.
Yes, and Phil, that's a completely another topic, because that industry is really feeding off of symptomatic treatment, and that is really not healthy. And so if we're thinking about that and we're utilizing that same philosophy in relationships, then we can apply it, like you said, to the root and say, you know what, I am going to disengage and not address this particular topic again, this confrontation that I'm having, until I've been able to think about the situation and de-stress a little bit.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to talk about tonight was how to detox from that, how to calm down, and also the health effects of being in this chronic stress situation we're in this feedback loop. We feel bad, we start losing sleep, we take a sleep medicine like Ambien. Ambien now become addicted after a short while.
Yes.
It also causes long-term memory loss. And so you have all of these interrelated problems. Antidepressants is a real good example, but we'll get to that. Antidepressants, one of the things antidepressants do, not only do they cause memory loss and addiction, but also they cause, in 40% of cases, people lose emotion. They become less emotional. So I see a ton of people coming in for marital problems in which they say, yeah, I've been on antidepressants for 5 or 10 years and I don't feel anything from my partner. I have no sex drive anymore. So now they're taking this medicine, but now they're losing their love. They haven't had sex in 5 or 10 years. And that impacts the relationship also. Plus, if they try to get off the medicine, then they go through extreme withdrawal, get hostile, attacking. We have more conflict. There's all of these, it's all interrelated. When you can't just take a piece of this and say, okay, when you're upset, express it, and then disconnect it from all the physiological changes, the relationship changes, the brain changes that go on. That's so 60 or 70-ish. Since then, we know so much more about biology and science of the body
Yes.
and mind, that it's like using leeches instead of antibiotics, or horse and carriage instead of an automobile. You know, let's come up to the 21st century, get rid of the leeches, and let's introduce antibiotics. Let's get rid of the horse and carriage, and let's put the automobile in there. That's
Right.
the
And
kind of analogy I like to use.
I think that that's an amazing analogy. And what I'm thinking is that many people are not able to tribute their source of lack of emotion and their responses if they are in certain stages of the medication cycle. And it's extremely confusing in that respect as to how they are feeling towards their partner and how to respond in a healthy way, because all of these things, these chemicals, are changing the real true person internally.
Oh yeah, yeah. And not only that, but all right, so let's focus on the health issue. They have now, we've discovered the new science, one of the sciences is the stomach, the gut. It's the
Okay.
new science that's opening up. And what we know now is we have 100 trillion bacteria and microflora in our stomachs.
Okay.
5 pounds.
It
5 pounds, that's a lot.
is a lot.
Yes, and when we eat food, we don't process the food. The bacteria does. It breaks it down so we can absorb it, or it releases chemicals that we need for the body. So the body is very integrated, and it's called, and there's a lot of stuff about the stomach we know now. It's called the brain-gut axis because there's almost 1 billion brain neurons in our stomach.
Okay, this is interesting.
There's 500 million in our heart and 86 billion up here. And so the three are constantly in constant communication. They're talking to each other. That's why you can have an emotional crisis hit and we have a stomach ache, or we eat something bad and our mood changes and we feel real lousy up here. Because the three are in constant communication, talking to each other. And one of the interesting ways it happens is this. We have 100 trillion microflora in our stomach, primarily bacteria. We're supposed to theoretically, ideally, have 85% good bacteria and 15% bad bacteria. That's the balance. Now, the good bacteria release serotonin. 95% of serotonin is released in the stomach by the bacteria. It's not up here, it's down here. So
who would have thought? Okay.
So what happens now is under stress, conflict creates stress, chronic stress, the body turns out from alkaline to acidic. And when it does that, the bad bacteria thrives and the good bacteria start dying off.
Okay.
The bad bacteria are hungry, so they send a chemical message to the brain that says, feed me. The brain now, that's why, and they like to feed on sugars, carbs, and fried foods. That's why they're called comfort foods. That's why we reach for comfort foods under stress, because our bacteria, the stomach now has changed, the stomach environment has changed. The bad bacteria now are demanding to be fed, and so our brain is trying to feed them in response to these chemicals, so we reach for junk food. At the same time, the serotonin level drops off from the good bacteria, which are dying off. So we're producing less feel-good chemicals. We're having this craving for starchy, sugary food, which spikes our insulin level, and then it crashes. All right? And that causes agitation, anxiety, a lot of different problems. And when this spikes, also hypertension, insulin raises our insulin level, which is really bad. So now we have this, we're chronically now sadder, then we reach for an antidepressant. Well, the antidepressant is really a stimulant, and what it does is it doesn't stimulate our feelings as much as it dulls our emotions. So
interesting.
It works in a negative way. And in the process of doing that now, people now, well, it affects long-term memory loss. They're addictive. And also the other thing that happens is that they, well, they affect our sex life, but like we talked about earlier, they dull the emotions towards the other party. So now I don't feel the same way. I don't have any feeling towards you anymore, honey. I have no sexual desire. And so now we've got another relationship problem because they think it's we just fell out of love. And it may be that, but it also might be a side effect from the medication. And
Right.
how do you tell the difference? Because it looks the same. And you also associated with that is you also have this generalized anxiety. Part of depression is generalized anxiety. So now people reach for anti-anxiety pills, Xanax, Valiums, etc.
Yes.
These are
Yes.
addictive. They cause bone fractures, long-term memory loss. Now, here's another interesting thing about memory loss. Let's talk about Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's
Yes.
is 92% of Americans surveyed said that they're afraid of losing their memory when they get older. 92%.
Okay.
Alzheimer's is the #3 killer now in America, right behind cancer and heart disease and cancer.
Okay, I didn't realize it was in the top 3, being the third one at all. Amazing. Okay.
And it's growing at an exponential rate. It grew at 15% last year, and they're saying by the year 2030, which is only 13 years away, there will be over 1 million people a year dying from it. So more will die from Alzheimer's in 13 years than cancer and heart attack combined. And
Oh my
if
goodness.
the trends continue, by the year 2050, half the population of the U.S. will have Alzheimer's, which basically says society will cease to exist because you can't have 50% keeping up the other 50%, because Alzheimer's is the most expensive medical condition and debilitating.
Yes,
and
it
there's
is.
no drugs, and so now people take Alzheimer's drugs for Alzheimer's. None of them work, and they also increase bone fractures significantly. That's why a lot of Alzheimer's medicine have fracture their bones, because one of the reasons is the medicine actually is one of the causes of it.
Very interesting.
So there's a lot. There's a lot of things that are contributing to the memory loss. It's happening at younger ages. It's becoming more intense. More people are succumbing to it, but that's another issue. But stress is one of the mechanisms that it plays into this. So, if we put these all together, the fight or flight response hits, right?
Okay.
One of the changes happens is this part of the brain, our back reptile lizard brain, gets in control, and we have what we talked about, lizard brain hijack, where it takes over. Now it's controlling us rather than our front brain, which is where we get our personality from and our values and our morals. We lose control of it, and this controls us. So physiologically, there's all these changes. Our lens gets darkened. We use this glasses as an example. So now we're seeing everything through a warped lens. You look purple.
Yes.
The doctor, Rebecca, because you got purple skin, serious stuff. But to me, it looks real. So now there's mood changes. They get dark. There's attitude changes. We get provocative, and our thoughts get all scrambled, illogical, attacking, provocative. So when that happens, we get rid of these. They're brutal. So when that happens now, there's also relationship changes that occur. These are all happening simultaneously. So physiologically, we get hardwired, our lens darkens, and now there's relationship changes in our environment. And I've identified 4 stages. So we're going to set up dominoes for this example. So I have all of these dominoes, and then an accident happens. The last one hits the next one, and before you could say, oh my goodness, you're wiped out. So then you're like, oh my goodness, accidents are going to happen. I need a break in there, a stop switch, so that I don't keep rebuilding. I just lost 3 months worth of effort. So you put in a break, you take something out every 10 or 15 or 20, and then it's like, oh, I only lost 20. I didn't lose 2,000. I'm good somewhere because I'm not spending all my time rebuilding it. And that's what happens with the relationship changes. So First stage, something will trigger our fight or flight response, look, tone, attitude, traffic jam, another bill from the phone company with a charge on it that you didn't plan for, but they stick it on anyway, and you just called about it the last 3 months. You know how that works. Poop happens. And so now we we get into this fight or flight response kicks in, Les changes, all right? The first domino's toddling, and I hadn't hit the second one yet because our lizard brain is a reciprocal brain. It needs something in return.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a little quiz, and your viewers a little quiz. All right. So I'm in lizard brain. All right. What am I seeking? By the way, reciprocal needs something in return. Fire needs oxygen.
Okay.
Alcoholics need alcohol in order to continue on in that state, or at least active. So I'm in lizard brain. You're in thinking brain. All right. So what am I seeking?
You're seeking something that's going to fuel the fire back in lizard brain.
Well, actually, what I'm seeking is conflict. Let's go down to the most basic level. That's right. That's right. It's going to fuel this. That's right. So I'm seeking conflict. You're in thinking brain. What are you seeking? Front brain, genius brain.
I'm looking for something that's a peaceful solution.
Yes, you're looking for conflict resolution.
Yes.
So the fight or flight response is inflammation. It's an inflammation of the body. All disease has inflammation as its source. You get rid of inflammation, and we pretty much eliminate all disease, including Alzheimer's, which is seen now as type 3 diabetes, and has inflammation as its cause.
I did not know that. That is something new for me. I did not even, that's very interesting. Yes, and that goes back to the gut.
Yes.
Among other diabetes. Things. Yes. Okay. Interesting here. Okay.
And they're saying regarding our gut, 80% of all disease starts in our stomach. So when we screw that up, things go really bad. By the way, by the way, 70% of doctor visits are stress related. And we're talking
that makes sense.
We're talking
I can understand that.
Yes. So the fight or flight response is an inflammation. This part, the brain and the body is inflamed. All right. So in flames, what does it need? Flames needs oxygen. I'm in the fight or flight. I need fight. All right. Or flight, but I need something that's inflammatory back. You're in genius brain thinking, I want to calm this down. I want conflict resolution because you're thinking long term. This isn't going to solve anything. We've been here 12 times, 1,000 times before. It's just going to create a lot of bad feelings. So you're trying to avoid it. You're bobbing and weaving. So what do? How do we know exactly how the other one? We know why they're trying to provoke us now because they're seeking conflict. We all do that, including me. We're unaware. Remember, one of these things is we lose awareness and we lose self-control. So even if we want to stop, we can't. We just see our life unfolding, the words coming out of our mouth.
Right.
But how do we know exactly what buttons to push, how to cut us? Well, back brain goes to front brain, which remembers all this stuff, stores it, and says, what is it that ticks them off? Bring up this topic, give them this look, put the finger in their face, and when all else fails, bring up their mother. I know she's been dead 20 years. It'll make them crazy. So we do that.
Yes.
We put it in your face.
And then now we have gotten the fuel that feeds that, and you've got the inflammation going again.
Yeah, so what happens is you're bobbing and weaving, staying in front brain with a clear lens, and then it happens. I was doing good. That's that first domino toddler. I was doing good until he or she said that topic, brought up that look, put that finger in my face again. That's what flew all over me. Bingo. The first domino now has hit the second one, and they're all going down. So we immediately switch into what I call the infection stage. The brake is off. So let's go back here. This is where the first dominoes hit the second one. We're going to slow this up and look at it in detail because it's a crucial point. So what does the conventional approaches of the last 50 or 60 years say? Be in touch with your anger. Don't repress it. Always be honest and open about how you feel. To be true to yourself. No secrets. Even the dark part that we're in. Let's bring it all out and deal with it now or you're running from the problem. So I get it out and I tell you what I quote really think. In order, I
Yes.
have to get it out, because if I keep this in, I'm running from it, I'm having secrets, and I'm repressing my anger. So let me tell you what I think. Well, Rebecca, I want to tell you this. I've been wanting to say this for 10 years. It's been really bothering me, but I have to get it out to be true to myself. You don't want me to
Right.
deny my own selfhood, right? My feelings. Right. So I'm going to tell you, Rebecca, you're a mistake of God. If he could do it over, he would redo the whole universe just to get rid of a low life like you. And your mother, she's even a bigger loser than you. Oh, thank you for letting me get that off my chest. I feel so much better. The problem is, you feel a lot worse, even more than that, a hell of a lot worse. So you got to now get it off your chest. And
well, Phil, here's how I feel.
Yeah.
So that I'm true to myself.
So we're going to give you these glasses now. And you're
that's a good, as you put that up to the screen, I've got to tell you that really gives a good example, because it shows how I would be looking at you. And you look blurry, and you look like my inflammation. When they say I see red, I can see a rosy hue to those dark glasses. And it's very, very apparent as we're talking, and you're holding that lens up. This is an absolutely fantastic analogy.
Now think about this. You're trying to describe accurately what I look like and the room looks like. It's impossible to do that. And yet,
it is impossible.
When we're in this state, we're convinced that what we see is real. We're speaking the truth, capital T. But
and the longer those lenses are on, the more we perceive that blurriness, that inflammation as what is true.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because it snowballs. That's exactly right. Sharp. All right.
Amazing.
So
okay.
Now we're into the infection stage. The break is off. So I get it off my chest, put it into yours. You put it back into mine. We immediately, before you can say infection, remember 1/1,000,000th of a second, we're well into stage 3, which is the escalation stage, or what I call the feeding frenzy, or the kitchen sink stage. That's where everything comes out. We're surviving. When I was drowning once, when I was a kid, I was flailing wildly, and they sent out a lifeguard, and I tried to stand on the lifeguard's shoulders in order to save myself. That's what we do in this escalation stage. It's just the body has perceived we're drowning, we're threatened with survival, and we throw everything at it. We don't care about future consequences, because this lens only thinks of the here and now.
Yes.
You're about to eat me, and I don't want to become your meal. That's all that matters at that point.
That makes perfect sense.
Now, and so what happens is people peek out, pull apart, and then they come to the final stage, the fourth one, which I call the recovery stage. So we pull away, we get calmer, and blood reroutes to our front brain, which clicks on, like the limb that falls asleep and blood starts flowing again. Remember, up to 75% of the blood gets shut off and rerouted here. Well, it flows back over here, and this clicks on, and now we have to pay the costs. And there's personal health, which we talked a little about, and relationship costs. The personal costs, well, we have regret, guilt, shame, mistrust issues. We have this negative preoccupation going over and over and around. And and we're using loud examples of arguments in order to, because it's easier to follow, but they don't have to be loud and drawn out. They can be what I call stealth attacks. I give you the evil eye, you give me the eye back. Nothing was said. It took 1/10 of 1 second, but we had the whole sequence. The dominoes are down, and people will say things like, I don't know what happened. We were having a nice conversation. Next thing I know, we hadn't talked to each other in 2 days. What the hell happened?
Yes.
And that's what happens. They go underground after a while. So you're confused. You add confusion to it. So we have all of these, and that's a short list of the costs. Then we have the health costs, cancer rate over time. 2 hours after this episodic release, which is healthy, raises the science now says it raises our heart attack rate 500%, and that's for a healthy person. If you have heart problems, it's a lot higher. Cancer rate, 3,000%. Here's a cancer statistic. 1 out of 2 men, when they die, have cancer in their body. And we're talking hard tumors, right? 1 out of 3 women. So why are we actively, and cancer is basically an inflammation of the body, of the cells. So why are we, and that's why it goes up 3,000% we're in this chronic stress, aka inflammation state, because
Okay.
it rewires all the way it changed. We don't have time to go into the tremendous changes it does in the body, but it's healthy to get your anger out. Yeah, but you just raised your cancer rate 3,000%. You just increased your heart attack rate in the 2 hours immediately after that, and stroke rate 500%.
Huge. Yes.
That's not my definition of healthy.
No. No.
I'm a little strange on that issue, So what happens now, we have these health costs, we have the personal costs, which we mentioned, emotional, and then we have relationship costs. Communication gets increasingly chaotic. Becomes a battle. It becomes, it's like we got to talk about an issue, let's say money. So all of these bombs go off. Well, we're not over it in a day or two or three, but we still have to talk about money. Well, we hadn't finished last week's argument. Let's finish that before we can get to this topic.
And now we're stacking.
Yeah, and now you have all of these things, and it gets increasingly difficult to talk about issues because you have all of this stuff. Some of it might be 10 years old that's been fermenting there. So we have communication gets increasingly chaotic, and the vent yourself approach, the catharsis approach, actually becomes part of the problem, because the more you catharsis, which we're going to show in a minute, the worse it gets. Sex becomes a battleground, a ritual, non-existent, but caring and enjoyment drops. You don't like them as much, you don't like their company as much after one of these events as you did prior to it, even if it was a quickie. I was feeling good about you. You looked at me with those, the look of death, with those daggers in your eyes. I don't enjoy your company as much now as I did 3 seconds ago before you looked at me that way. And the other thing is that not only don't I enjoy your company as much, I don't like you as much. So basically what this catharsis approach does is it sucks personal peace out of people's lives, it destroys our health, and it sucks life out of their relationship. It's just death. There's no life left with this whole movement and what it causes. And then there's a fourth change. We talked a little about neuroplasticity, where the brain now, the brain is neuroplasticity. The latest science says, we used to think that the brain stopped growing after a certain age, like 21. Now we know it grows throughout our life. It's plastic. It flows, ebbs and flows. And so what happens is we have 86 billion neurons, and they talk and form new connections, synapse connections, and expand our knowledge base. So 86 billion times 100,000, basically the brain can grow infinitely.
Okay.
And what it does, and it only takes 4 days for it to shrink up certain cells. It's like a muscle. If you use it, it grows.
Wow.
And if you don't use it, we lose it. So it only takes 4 days. So think about this, to form new synapse connections and shrink. So what happens is the brain uses 30% of the body's energy.
Okay.
So under chronic stress, conflict, the brain says, well, why am I keeping front brain active, love, empathy, caring? I hadn't used that in weeks, months, maybe years. So it shrinks it up. Why keep all that energy there? And it reroutes the energy back here that it needs for the next battle, bigger muscle.
Interesting.
So over time, the brain becomes unbalanced, and this becomes our default setting.
Okay.
Now, what is the default setting? Well, when I was 17, I was in New York City at a four-way intersection learning to drive. And my father's like, first time I was behind the wheel, my father's like, fight or flight. He's like, son, why don't you step on it? And I'm like, Dad, what happens if I didn't have any front neurons?
Right.
What happens if my foot slips off the brake? What happens if I go through the building? What happens if I get T-boned? Just step on it. A man attacked my father. And so I went. 15 minutes later, I crawl into the house and I'm like, now, I leave my office at night late, and sometimes I get home and I fall, I put the seat back in the carport and I fall asleep and I wake up at 2 o'clock and I'm like, how did I get here? I was in the office, the last thing I know.
Right.
And then I look up next to me on the seat and I've got all of these groceries and I'm like, and who bought these groceries? And they got exactly what I needed. And how did they pay for them? Because I didn't have the money for that. So anyway, how did I do all that? Default setting. This brain became my default setting, and now we know how to drive. Now I can drive. I can talk on the phone, listen to the music, and not sweat any of it. So that's the default setting. So over time, the brain becomes increasingly lopsided, and this becomes our default setting. And so what happens is this is dark, bleak, doom, and gloom. All right, which means after a while, our own negative thoughts, worries, preoccupation about what's wrong with the other party, what's wrong with the other party, how bad they are, become self-activating. So we don't need the other party to pull us into conflict because we're providing our own fuel source.
Okay.
The flames. And that's, you're at that point because now people are saying, no matter what I say, they're defensive. They're always attacking me. We can't talk about anything without getting attacked. That's the default setting where the brain is in hyper-vigilant state.
Okay.
So let's put these all together, okay? Now for this, let me get these glasses here real quick. All right. So this is how we put this together. All right, I'm going to use some different glasses. See these glasses? Okay. These are pretty cool. My dentist.
They are.
Glasses. Okay. So what we got is fight or flight response hits. Blood reroutes here, right?
Okay.
All of these organs now are on hyper alert status, expecting a life survival threatening issue. Our lens darkens, so we see things in a negative lens. Now I communicate in a way that's conflict-seeking and provocative. We get along more poorly. It feeds back onto me. I feel worse. I hadn't slept. I'm worrying. I got a stomach ache. I'm worried. More stress hormones are released. Lens gets darker. Now you're more warped. I can see you even worse. See that?
Yes, yes.
See, here's one. All right. There's one. Now we do two. It gets even worse.
This is like the DUI glasses, the goggles that they put you on. Yeah, yes.
So now I see it even more distorted. So now I'm communicating in a more provocative and warped way, mishearing, twisting things around. At the same time, so we get along more poorly. It feeds back. I feel worse. I'm having headaches now, breaking out in rashes. I have all these negative thoughts, more stress hormones released. This gets darker, right? I'm seeing things even more warped. See,
yes.
You can barely see the other party, it's warped. Now, you know what these three mean? See these? I get these from my dentist. What that means is he drives a nicer car than I drive, and I'm paying for him to drive that car. That's what these three So anyway, so now this thing, it's even darker, right? So, and the brain's wiring for this. The brain is growing this because I have to get prepared for this. So now we're in a self-reinforcing and escalating loop, and it's progressive. Everything expands. Triggers are quicker, infections quicker, escalations worse. And you hear people saying like, we used to have just this quick quip and exchange biting remarks, pull apart, and felt horrible. Now we say and do the most horrible things to each other. I don't know,
like that.
Yes. I don't know who I'm turning into. I used to see couples like this and thought they were animals. Now we're turning into animals and we can't control it. We don't know how to stop it. Every time we try to talk about it, it just seems to blow up in our face. So now you're in this self-reinforcing and escalating loop. And at this point, if we discuss things, we get into an argument. And if we don't discuss anything, we still get into arguments. So we're in a lose-lose situation no matter what we do, or it appears. The other thing that happens is at this point frequently is they get tired of arguing, so it goes underground, and now there's all these elephants in the room that nobody wants to talk about. Because like a wall, you keep bouncing off this wall. Now there's another thing we didn't talk about, which is called, which I identified as the dead zone. So the dead zone is this. Let me get a piece of paper out. So here's how this works. So we have, what we have is this. So here's the relationship, cruising along, all right? Caring, all right, so you can see this. We'll put this down a little. All right, so here it is. The relationships early on is cruising along. Caring's rising. All right, can you see that? All right. There's little, there's conflict, but you get over it. And if it continued at this point, you'd be over here in X number of months or years. If it stabilized, you'd be over here. But what happens is, at some point, you cross a threshold and the recovery becomes incomplete before you have another negative encounter.
Okay.
It might be a 5-minute disagreement or argument, but you're not over in 5 minutes. Might not be 5 hours or 5 days. So if before you get back to where you were to full recovery, you get hit with another one, and then increasingly, and you hadn't gotten over number 27, and you get with number 28.
Yes.
So caring now drops at this level instead of up here, and then you get into what I call the dead zone. The dead zone is there's no caring left. Remember, this sucks caring life out of people. So why bother fixing it if there's no caring left?
There's nothing left. Yes.
Yes. Real good example. I don't know if I used this last week. Was I was seeing this couple, and they were he was clearly dragging her in, and she didn't want to be there, and she said, "Why should I? Why? You never follow through on anything." He said, "No, this is serious. This time I hadn't had a drink in 6 months. I have no women." They went through this whole yeah. And so she said, it doesn't matter because it's too late. The dead zone. Yes. Yes. So that's the place you don't want people to get to, because if they get there, it's all over. And there's a lot of things contribute to that. People working 80 hours a week. There's a lot of stuff, but one of the contributing factors that we have control, or can have some control over, or a lot, is the communication, and how are we throwing gasoline on this process, or are we throwing water on it? Yes. Which brings us to the solution. All right.
Awesome. Here we go.
Okay. So conflict starts 2 ways. We go into lizard brain and we provoke an argument, totally unknown, unaware. So, or they go into lizard brain and they pull us in. And in spite of our efforts, they want to, no matter what we do, we're gonna lose situation. Let's deal with that in a second scenario, all right? Because you have to get the first one first. So what I suggest doing for the first one is where if we go into argument, when we go into fight or flight, lizard brain, and provoke them, what we need to do, I ask people to, is identify when that mechanism is going off in you. Can you feel your heart pumping harder, your muscles tensing in your neck, your stomach knotting in a certain way? What might it be for you, Rebecca? I know you don't get into that kind of stuff, but let's pretend.
What would bother me? Disrespect somehow.
All right, that's the trigger. But what is
my trigger?
What's the physical thing can you feel going on inside of you? Because you have all of these changes going on.
I get a lot of anxiety.
Okay, where?
Mostly in the center part of my body. So it would be stomach and chest.
Okay,
which goes back to the gut that you talked about. It makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, my stomach gets tied in a knot in a certain way. People tell me they can feel their sinuses flush, their sweaty hands, whatever it is. That's the sign. It only is one. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. That your body's about to reroute blood from here to here, and you're about to go into a conflict destroying mode, not healing mode. Okay. So what I suggest to people to do, this is a skill. Initially, what I want you to do is get away. I need a pause switch in here. I want that domino to hit the second domino. Now you have 2 responses here. You have the fighters who go into it full blown when they get upset. Let's talk about it. Come on. And then you have the fighters who flee,
Yes.
So that's a different animal completely. So let's talk about the fighters for now, because they're really the powerhouse in a lot of relationships. They're like tsunamis that wash away everything in their path. So it's almost like you have to flee to survive. All right. So what do? So what you have is get away. Now I want you to get calmer. Go into another room or go out of the house. But you got to let this brain know, stand down. You're not under attack. So beforehand, you have to plan this out. Find a place in the house, a room you can go to that you can close the door. You need a barrier there because you have to let this brain know there's a warning sign there. If there's no,
Yes.
if you're in the same room, somebody can lunge, so this brain is always on alert. But if you're in another room with a door there, you have to hear them coming up to the door. You have to hear them banging on the door. So it gives this brain a chance to relax. The threat's not imminent. I can take a breath. Now you have to detox those chemicals. You got to reroute blood because the brain is like, get ready for the next one. So it's forming. You want to force the blood to come here. All right?
Right.
You want to reroute your brain and then turn your body. So what you do, or what I suggest people do, is exercise is real good because these chemicals were made to be released for an intense physical battle to the death. And if they're just circulating all around you, they're like, the body is made for movement, fight or flight. And
it's got to come out.
Yes. If you're just sitting there, they're cooking your insides. One of the changes is your arteries expand 1,200%. They're like, come on, I'm ready to go. And you're just sitting there with your foot on the gas and the brake. And there's smoke coming out of the wheels. The engine's making all these noises. The clutch is burning out. So move. It's made for movement. When you don't move, we cause tremendous changes. So if you can, exercise. Go for a walk if you can. A lot of times you can't. But while you're in your room, there's a lot of things you can do. Put on calming music. Put on a comedy show. One of the things you don't want to do, research shows that they took this experiment with social media and they found that people who were sad and looked at social media got more depressed. Here it is. You just had a fuss with your loved one, and you get on there, and people are going on vacations, and they have these family pictures. Well, you're going to tank. And they found when they took people off of that for a week, they got undepressed.
Yes.
Because that was making, through envy of where the other party is, that was making them depressed. So stay off of social media. That's really tough because a lot of people are addicted to it. I know.
But it's true, though. Mm-hmm.
So meditation, any spirituality you have, whatever form that is, they have brain scans that show this front brain lights up when we have a spiritual interaction of some kind, meditation of some kind. It could be just going out into nature and absorbing the smells and awe.
Right.
So there's what's called control breathing. Where you control your breathing down. You breathe through your stomach, in and out, not horizontal through your chest, because if you notice when we're in the fight or flight, it's a vertical breathing. They have what's called horizontal breathing, where you breathe from your stomach. So you want to breathe through your nose with your stomach, and you want to get to the place where you're going to slow your breathing down to the place where you can just barely feel the air coming through your nostrils. And that reroutes blood over here, releases carbon dioxide and calms the body down. Touch is really good. Grab a pet, caress your pet, kiss your children. Kissing is really amazing. The science behind kissing. What it does is it releases oxytocin, right?
Yes.
Now the feel-good chemicals, the body has what's called the relaxation response. That's a reset for the body. The lizard brain is called the fight or flight, but the front brain is called rest and digest. So this calms, they're both connected to all of those organs we talked about. This pumps those organs up, but this brain, when active, calms them down. That's why when crisis has passed, we can feel our blood pressure dropping and our breathing slowing up. That's this brain saying the crisis has passed, chill out. So, and they're connected through what's called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a snake-like nerve that connects all of these organs. So you can stimulate this nerve through logic, calm down, and it calms those down, or you can go in reverse by touch. Touch stimulates. See, here's an experiment. Take your left hand and put it on your right hand and squeeze till it hurts. Right? When it hurts, or put your nails like this, and it's like, the brain is like, activates this part of the brain. Now take your right hand and lightly caress your left arm like a loving caress. That, through the same nerve, depends on how we're touched, will activate this brain. Threat, it hurts. This feels this feels good, and it routes it over here. So we can control through this way the organs,
Yes.
or we can go up from the organs to this way. That's why
Okay.
if you that's why hugging a pet, petting a dog or an animal, a cat, feels so good. It's activating that vagus nerve, and that's releasing chemicals from this brain.
The
And these chemicals,
oxytocin.
and dopamine and some of these others, which is like water on the stress chemicals.
Makes sense.
So those so calming music, meditation, exercise, comedy is really good. They did another experiment, and they wanted to see if reading would have an effect on the stress chemicals. So they found that reading a book, a hardcover book, not a email book, actually is one of the most effective ways to calm that down. And a novel they found was the best, because they theorized that the brain had to fill in the gaps in order to follow the action.
That's very interesting. Okay.
So what you want to do is you want to force the blood back over here. Here's another one that's tough to do, but is really potent. You've heard of a gratitude journal, right? Where you write down things you're grateful for. Well, when you're upset, write down, and I know this is tough, but if you can force yourself to do this, you are forcing the blood over here. Write down 3 things or 5 things that you feel gratitude towards with this other party. Well, they did help me change the diaper one time. And when I was sick, they did bring me a glass of water. That forces the blood over here and releases an enormous number of feel-good chemicals. I had one lady, I was talking to her about this, and she said, well, if I write down something like, he's not as stupid as he looks, does that count? I said, well, that'll qualify. That barely covers.
Oh, goodness.
So the worst thing the science says is talking is the worst thing.
Okay.
And there's all of these other things, it's like 20 things I put together, that the science says works, but talking is the worst. And what does communication approaches have said? Talk it through.
Talk it out, yes.
That's the worst possible thing that the science says. It pushes us more into this brain. We get more defensive. We feel more attacked. Last week I used the example when I was upset, and my wife came over and she stroked my head and said, I love you, and gave me a little kiss on my head, and it calmed me right down. Well, when she gets upset, recently she was upset over something minor, and that's the stuff that we get upset about. So I got up from the dinner table, and I came over to her, and I said, honey, I need your love. I need a kiss. So give me a hug. So, her hands were at her side. So I hugged her. I whispered. So there's one thing, touch.
Yes.
Full body touch releases some chemicals. I whispered slowly, slow talk. I love you dearly. You're the most special thing to me. Thank you for your love. All right, so there's words of affirmation and gratitude and love. And then I gave her a big kiss. 3 different things. I was throwing chemicals on that thing.
Yes.
And it just, her whole thing changed, and the lens came off, and we were in a different place completely. Words, as I was sitting there at the dinner table talking to her, she was getting more and more and more defensive. I switched tactics and entered through the back door, so to speak. Touch, loving words, talking to her heart, and it just tied that back brain in knots, and this brain was able to kick in.
I absolutely love it. And I know, Phil, that there's a whole lot more that we could talk about and really assist so many people out there. But I know that you have information that's available on your site through book, and I would like you to give that information to our viewers so that they can get a hold of the information that you have. Your insight on this is just incredible, and I will tell you why. Many people say, well, I understand that part, or, I've heard that. But really understanding the totality of how our body is reacting to all of these things is essential, because it is taking those glasses off the perception that we originally have and allowing us to be able to actually get into the front part of the brain and apply these techniques. I think this is fabulous. So if you would give the viewers the information on how to get in contact with you, your book, and more.
Okay, well, I'm working on a book, Let's Talk More Love, but right now I have a website, letstalkmorelove.com, and I have a quiz. Take the how far are you in the dead zone quiz, but sign up for, I'm going to have a free half an hour, 45-minute webinar going to go live within the next couple weeks, and I'm going to walk people through this. I have a lot of fun stuff on there, masks I use to show a lizard brain and pictures and graphics and cartoons. And at the same, and the really nice thing about that is I've had clients in here that I've seen and talked to about this, but when they've seen this stuff, like on some of these interviews we've talked about, like stuff has clicked because they have a chance to look at it. They come in and they'll say, yeah, I saw that interview you had last week. It made a lot of sense. Well, I've only been talking about it for 3 weeks, 3 months in here. How come now you're getting it? So that's the nice thing about this venue, of having something that it's less threatening. You can process it at your speed. And then I'm going to have a relatively inexpensive, like 6-part course in which I'm going to walk people through actually how to do this. Anyway, so
I love it.
I'm excited about that.
And where can they get in contact with you?
Well, you could do my email, DeLuca, LCSW, like Dean and DeLuca, DELUCA, LCSW @gmail.com, or Facebook, Untalk Therapy, and that'll do it. That'll do it.
Well, like we said in the last episode, you are the Untalk doctor, and you are, or Dr. Un. I love it. I love everything that you're doing. I love the how you're able to really just break things down into a level that we can understand and, again, apply. And I want to thank all of you out there for watching today. Phil, thank you so much for being on the show again. There is so much information that you have, and I cannot wait to get a hold of a copy of your book. So if they can get on a waiting list, I'm on it too. And so again, thank you. And I really do appreciate everything that you have done in your research and the experience that you've had, as well as sharing the experiences with our viewers, both on the last episode and this one. And again, all of you for watching, thank you. We do appreciate you very much. And this has been brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project, as well as TLBTV. Thanks, and have a healthy day.